I believe Stony Brook is truly a world-class institute.
Being at a research university affords students the opportunity to work with some of the foremost scholars in their fields.
If I were to say what's the one word that characterizes my students here at Stony Brook, is that they're curious.
There's an energy here that I've always found it tremendously appealing.
It feels incredibly humbling to receive this support as an endowed faculty member. It also charges me with the responsibility to support high-quality care to patients in our community.
The endowment supports the Academy of the Clinical Education Scholars in the School of Medicine, advancing the careers and help those scholars progress in their goals in clinical and educational researches. This is possible because of the support that Mickey and David Donahoe give to the university.
It really does make a difference because the world is very competitive, and having endowment support gives us an additional tool to win in this global battle for talent.
For me, it's very rewarding. I think Jan is really unusual in the sense that she really has viewed her philanthropy as a partnership.
Bala himself has been very active in promoting work on the Tamil language. He started a Tamil language school with his wife. One of the main things that the endowment will do is allow me to recruit a team of people that can work on Tamil and raise awareness about this language.
This is really great. This endowment was a way to keep really dreaming big about what we want to do with this quantum internet for the state of New York. President McInnis is a wonderful scholar that really understands the impact that this research can have into society.
The greatest joy in science is when you take a hypothesis and then you really explore it. And I think that was the happiest day of my academic life, that we had something that actually worked at that level.
Getting this endowment support really allows us to pursue ideas on a faster time frame, in that we can take an idea that we have today and turn it around to a solution and new understanding tomorrow.
You know, it's amazing, especially in the arts. Since Bach and Beethoven, we have relied upon sponsors and donors. And literally, our music is made possible so often because of these people that come behind us and say, yes, I want you to be heard more.
It's certainly an honor not just to chair at Stony Brook, but when supported by Marilyn Simons and showing her trust in the department, my colleagues here, to really build something special.
Lillian went forward and said, I want to make things better. I want to give forward. I want to help out with what is going on in this county. We took those words to heart.
We know that we can choose our own path, and we can create new programs, and we can create new ways of doing things. That willingness to try new things, to see if there's a way to make anything better, whether it's education or science or clinical care, has been very appealing to me.
Whatever we can do now to make the future better than it would be otherwise, we need to do it. And so what I say to the students is, now is the absolute best time to work in marine conservation, because what you do now is going to determine what the future looks like.
Welcome. I am so pleased to be here tonight to have the opportunity to recognize excellence among our faculty. This is like being at a Hall of Fame induction, including our great hype video. The theater is jam-packed with talent tonight. It's great to see so many faculty and staff here to celebrate their achievements and distinction of their colleagues as we honor 14 faculty appointed to endowed chairs and professorships. I also see several others in the audience who hold our highest honors as faculty, as endowed and distinguished professors. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. Stony Brook is an amazing university on the rise. We're climbing in prestige and recognition, as evidenced by our latest jump in the rankings and leadership of major initiatives like the New York Climate Exchange. Without outstanding faculty, none of that is possible. You are the innovators, the creators, the scholars, the problem solvers, the educators, the performers. And you are a huge part of why I say that being here is is the best career decision I have ever made. In each interaction, I always walk away so impressed by our faculty, what they've chosen to do, how they lead, and how they've made their careers at Stony Brook. I'm so glad that we've taken this time this evening to celebrate everything that you've accomplished and the way others have seen who you are, what you can do, and want to support you. Each of you represents some of the best work and the most brilliant minds of your disciplines. The work you have simply changes lives, and you improve societies, and you impact the entire world. It's an honor to serve as your provost, and I do, and all of us do, what we can to try to enable you to do even more in service of the great ideas and the great potential that you have. Congratulations to each and every one of you. We are so proud to celebrate you as the best of what we have here at Stony Brook, and it's my pleasure now to turn it over to our amazing president, Maurie McInnis.
Well, good evening, everyone. Really so excited to see so many of our friends, supporters, faculty here this evening. And I'm honored and proud to be able to be here for this exceptional occasion where we get to recognize our outstanding faculty for their innovation and excellence. In this very room, we are looking at some of the brightest minds of our time, individuals whose impact will be felt for years to come. Stony Brook's promise and prominence on the world stage are rising, and as you learn more about our soon-to-be invested faculty chairs, you'll soon understand why we are experiencing this meteoric rise. I am exceedingly grateful, as I know we all are, for the generous friends, many of whom are with us tonight, who have created these endowed chairs. And it is their partnership and the trust that they have placed in Stony Brook that plays such an essential role in this university's ascent to becoming the #1 public university in New York. We are honored to have a number of those friends with us today. Jan Bazuki, Scott Schneider, Marilyn and Jem Simons, Prabha Swaminathan, Yuri Schinkel, Roz Walrath, and Mark Newhouse. We are also fortunate to be joined by SUNY and Stony Brook Foundation trustee Carrie Stoller and Stony Brook Foundation trustee Lori Landau. Thank you all for being here, for your remarkable support, your trust, and your partnership. With you by our side, we are dreaming big and we are seizing new opportunities. Our vision as the flagship for the future, and I see our future right there, is fueled by you, and together, I know we will deliver New York State a research flagship university it can be proud of. Endowed faculty positions like those we are celebrating today will help lead us to that future. In the Greek tradition, the word philanthropy is rooted in the words philos, meaning love, and anthropos, meaning humanity. And so, if we want to be literal about it, the word philanthropy means the love of humanity. And tonight, we are seeing that love and support of Stony Brook in action. So I'm grateful, I'm excited, and let's all embrace this moment. Together, let's seize this tremendous opportunity to examine, define, and live up to our own standards for excellence, innovation, opportunity, and service. To drive the social and economic mobility of our community, to meet the changing needs of our exceptional students and campus community, And the significance of your investment in these endowed positions cannot be overstated. Your support allows us to assemble these talented individuals who come to Stony Brook knowing that they are surrounded by a community that is defined by aspiration, inspiration, dedication, a community that prepares for and believes in and helps to build the future. I'm honored to be building that future together with all of you. So with tonight's focus on faculty excellence, I am honored to introduce this evening's keynote speaker, Dr. Heather Lynch, the inaugural Institute for Advanced Computational Science Endowed Chair in Ecology and Evolution. Dr. Lynch is described by her Stony Brook peers and global collaborators as extraordinary, remarkable, amazing. They really can't find enough adjectives, and I couldn't agree more. Internationally known for her extensive research as a quantitative ecologist, monitoring Antarctic penguin populations, Dr. Lynch's work combines field research in Antarctica with advanced methods for satellite imagery interpretation. She has been at the forefront of using high-resolution satellite imagery to map penguin occupancy and abundance across Antarctica. Her work is improving our understanding of penguin biology and their response to climate change. She is the first Stony Brook faculty member and the first ecologist to receive the prestigious Blavatnik National Award for Young Scientists. So please join me in a round of applause as we welcome Dr. Heather Lynch to share her remarks.
Well, thank you so much. This is a huge opportunity for me, and I'm so grateful to be here for all of you. And when I initially was invited to give these keynote remarks, I was thinking, wow, those are huge shoes to fill. And then I actually got the list of all of you that are here to have your chairs invested, and I'm thinking, oh, there is no way that I'm going to tell all of you something you don't already know. You're the brightest, the most experienced, the most cutting-edge faculty that we have here. And so I thought, instead of trying to tell you something you don't know, I'd spend a few minutes talking about something that I've been thinking a lot about lately, and I think some of you are probably thinking a lot about as well. And that is the issue of time. So we'll start, our journey here in Antarctica, where my own research is focused. And as some of you may already know, as was mentioned in the introduction, my students and I work in the Antarctic on ships very much like the one that you see here. And we'll have teams of students and researchers working on different ships, sailing all over the Southern Ocean, doing research and surveys. And we need some way of coordinating our activities across those ships. Now, when we started doing this 15 or 20 years ago, we didn't have the internet on ships. We didn't have Gmail. We needed some way of coordinating our activities. And so what we did was we would write a little text message at the end of every day that would get sent out. The messages would go between the ships maybe once or twice a day. And we'd write a little message that just said, where did we go today? Where are we going tomorrow? And what do we need to know from the rest of the ships? And this worked really well as a way of coordinating our research. And even as the technology for communication improved, we kept up with these, what we call daily reports. Every day, that was the rhythm of the day, you would end with this daily report. Now, like everyone else's, my research came to a screeching halt in February of 2020. And you can imagine that there are few things that you can do less easily in the middle of a pandemic than take a cruise ship to the bottom of the earth. And so, me, like all of you, were trying to figure out, how do I run a research lab? How do I keep pushing things forward? How do I support my students in this time when we're all scattered to the winds in our own home offices? And one of my students said, well, why don't we just do a daily report like we do in the field? And I'm like, that's a great idea. So we did that every day. What did you do yesterday? What are you going to do today? What do you need to know from someone else in the team? And this worked so well that even when we came back after we resumed in-person research, we decided to keep that up, although not on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. And so now every week, when I come in on a Monday, I sit down like my students and I type into Slack, what did I do last week? What am I going to do this week? And what do I need to know to do that successfully? And that forces me to really think about, well, what did I do last week? What did I say I was going to do last week? No one plans, that their goal for the week is to answer 237 emails and go to 17 meetings. There was something that you wanted to do last week, and it's a good chance for me to reflect on whether I got any of that done. Now, it was around this time that we started doing these weekly reports that I read this book here by Oliver Burkeman called 4,000 Weeks. Now, even through the lights, I can see you guys doing, the calculations here. I'll save you the trouble. 4,000 weeks is about 80 years. It's about the time that we all have on this planet to do all of the things that we want to do in this very short life. 4,000 weeks, that's like nothing. And when we think about what we want to do for our research, for our scholarship, for our students, we're down to 2,000 weeks. 2,000 weeks. And so I think about that now when I'm typing in my weekly report. Well, what did I do last week? In between all the meetings and emails, did I get 1/2,000th of the way to my career goals? It's kind of a high bar. Burkeman says we've been granted the mental capacities to make almost infinitely ambitious plans, yet practically no time at all to put them into action. And that couldn't be more true. Now, no one thought more about the shortness of this 2,000 weeks than the Antarctic explorers. As a student of Antarctic history, I know that these brave men were obsessed with this idea of time, the shortness of time. These expeditions would take years to plan, years to execute, and they would at best maybe get 1, 2, 3 bites at the apple, maybe if they were lucky. They had to make the most use of their time. Now, their names are familiar to many of you, Scott and Shackleton and Amundsen. And of all the things that they had to worry about, the thing that kept them up at night was not shipwreck and starvation, hypothermia, falling into a crevasse. Though they got to do all of that in spades, what kept them up at night was fundraising. Every minute of every day that they were not on the ice was spent trying to figure out how they were going to fund these amazing expeditions. Those ships were not going to build themselves. The larders were not going to supply themselves. The staff were not going to hire themselves. Nothing that they wanted to do could be done without the generous support of the other heroes of the Antarctic age, which are the funders and the philanthropists and the benefactors and the supporters that allowed those expeditions to go forward. These were visionaries that understood the power of exploration, of pushing the envelope, of dreaming big dreams and doing big things. And so while they might not be household names in quite the same way as Scott and Shackleton and Amundsen, their legacies are literally written on the maps of Antarctica. Excuse me. If you look at an Antarctic map and you look at the glaciers and the mountains and the coastlines and the islands, those were not named for people's moms or their wives or their kids or their family. No, they were named for the supporters that made those trips possible, because they knew that without that kind of support, without the gift of that opportunity to make the most of their 2,000 weeks, none of that would have been possible. Now, of course, this opportunity comes with a huge obligation, and the Antarctic explorers understood that obligation. They understood that with that gift, they had to give it their all. They had a huge obligation to make the very most of that moment, the most of their 2,000 weeks. And I think about that obligation on a regular basis. So I just want to end with a story. A couple of months ago, I was giving a lecture at a museum, and the curator of the museum sent me the bio with which he was going to introduce me. And in it, he said that I was the chair of the Department of Ecology and Evolution. And I wrote back, I said, no. I'm an endowed chair in ecology and evolution. And he's like, well, what do you mean by that? And so I wrote back and I explained, and he said, now hold on a second. You get more resources for your research and the esteem of your peers, but you don't have to fire anybody. And if a student drives the van off the road on a field trip, you're not responsible for that. And I was like, yeah, that's about right. And he said, that's amazing. And it is amazing. And so I'm so excited to congratulate all of you. I know this is a long time coming, far, far too long coming, and I'm so excited to be able to celebrate this exciting day with all of you. And I hope that you'll take this day to celebrate. But tomorrow morning, when you wake up, I hope you'll think a little bit about how you're going to make the most of this week and next week and those weeks that remain of the 2,000 that we all get. And to recognize that the power of this endowment, the power of this chair, is your ability to squeeze the very most out of those 2,000 weeks. And to do, as we say here at Stony Brook, to go far beyond. So with that, I'll say congratulations and thank you so much.
That was really incredible. And so I just want another round of applause for that. So, if you all missed it, we recently hosted an event on campus called Science on Stage. Led by Ken Weitzman in English and the Alan Alda Center, the program paired Stony Brook researchers with playwrights to create one-act plays inspired by each researcher. Heather was one of those featured researchers, and her story inspired an outstanding play. The same is true of each of the plays produced. And I think what was so amazing about that event was it was an opportunity to see from the eyes of an artist what someone's science, what their contribution, not just what it meant at a rigor level, but what it meant to the real world, what it meant to how we feel as humans, and as Maurie talked about before, our humanity. It was really an absolutely special event. So later, when I got lots of questions about whether we'll keep funding it, I was much less nervous about saying, yes, we'll definitely find a way to keep funding it. So I wanted to highlight that as another way we are elevating the work and significance of researchers here is the way that we transcend interdisciplinary borders. Many universities talk about being interdisciplinary, but we really do it here at Stony Brook. It's risky, it's thoughtful, and it creates opportunities to do far more than we could have done alone. And so with that, it's now my great pleasure to introduce Axel Dries, our interim dean of the College of Arts and Sciences. He's going to introduce 7 faculty from the College of Arts and Sciences honored here tonight. Axel?
So it's my pleasure to introduce those 7 faculty, and the first one is Karina Chapman from the Department of Chemistry. Dr. Chapman, would you please join us here on stage?
I think I've always been interested in understanding how the world works. I think that comes from my childhood. I think my dad would point things out, and that kind of understanding is powerful because that allows you to predict how things are going to behave. My research focuses on materials for energy applications. And so we use X-rays to understand the atomic structure of these functional materials as they're reacting in an operating battery or a functional catalyst. And ultimately, this tells us how to design next generation materials that are going to give us batteries that last 5 times longer. Stony Brook has a really strong history of training instrumentalists and people who use X-ray tools to understand materials. And so that's the type of frontier that I try to push forward. And certainly this is something that all my students become experts in. So getting this endowment support really allows us to pursue ideas on a faster time frame, in that we can take an idea that we have today and turn it around to a solution and new understanding tomorrow.
Dr. Chapman, Stony Brook University proudly recognizes your outstanding contributions in teaching and research, honors your exemplary service in the field of chemistry, and acknowledges the distinction you bring to the university as the inaugural endowed chair for material chemistry. Okay, so the next faculty member is Eden Figueroa from the Department of Physics and Astronomy. Eden, would you please join us on stage?
Quantum Internet is a combination of the current Internet, and then we sprinkle a lot of quantum physics into it to make the Internet more secure so that it can transfer more data, so it can be more trustable. Through this endowment, we have the opportunity to build the first distributed quantum processing network. That means a network of laboratories like the one that you see behind me in different parts of New York, connected with single photons that are flowing in fibers between the laboratories. And of course, without these funds, it will be impossible to think big and really try to develop it in the scale that we're trying to do it. This has provided Stony Brook with an opportunity to do some really fundamental, original research that can actually translate in really high societal impact, because as we know, everybody uses the internet. Students come here and they have the opportunity to work in world-class research. The opportunities that that provides and the roads that it opens for the students are incredible. I think this is what Stony Brook is about, and this is why we love working here so much.
Dr. Figueroa, Stony Brook University proudly recognizes your outstanding contributions in teaching and research, honors your exemplary service to the field of quantum physics, and acknowledges the distinction you bring to the university as the inaugural Presidential Innovation Endowed Professor. Congratulations. Thank you. Next up, we have Thomas Manuel from the Department of Music. Professor Manuel, would you please join us on stage?
Jazz is really amazing. It's our soundtrack to the 20th century. The lessons jazz teaches us: patience and acceptance, tolerance and collaboration. So when we're studying jazz, quite often the perception is that we are studying or researching or practicing something that is in the past that has already been done. But what we really are doing is continuing a dialogue and a conversation that is very, very important and relevant right here in the 21st century. What drew me to Stony Brook is what has drawn scholars and students and researchers to Stony Brook for decades and decades, which is a commitment to what's new, a commitment to what's next. In jazz, we always have this kind of saying that your first answer should always be yes. You're open to new things, you're open to experimenting, you're open to new collaborations. And it's been so exciting to have Stony Brook provide me that same opportunity and inspiration for sure.
Professor Manuel, Stony Brook University proudly recognizes your outstanding contributions to teaching and research, honors your exemplary service to the field of music, and acknowledges the distinction you bring to the university as the inaugural Department of Music Endowed Artist in Residence Fellow. Congratulations. Okay, our next faculty member is Kathleen McGarry from the Department of Economics.
I want Stony Brook to really not just be a flagship university in the state of New York, but known nation and worldwide as really a top research university. And you can't have a top research university without a top economics department. And really a great opportunity to try to help lead this effort to build something even more special than we already have. There are going to be new faculty lines, graduate student support with particular focus on diversity, but I also hope to sort of continue my research looking at long-term care, and particularly some recent work I have examining the effect of early cognitive decline on financial status and financial consequences. I started my thesis here back a long time ago, looking at poverty among widows. And as I started looking at some of the issues facing the elderly, I realized how important this need to provide for elderly in their later years was, looking at the cost of healthcare towards the end of life. I don't think anybody has really sort of figured out how to deal with this coming crisis, and I hope to really add to that.
So, this endowment was made possible by the generosity of Marilyn Simon, and I'm told that anyone who knows Marilyn Simons knows what a deep and analytic thinker she is, so it should not be a surprise that her PhD thesis characterized the optimal bidding strategy of players in a divisible good auction under capital constraints, showing her model to be consistent with the revenue maximization strategy of Treasury auctions. Furthermore, I'm told that anyone who knows Marilyn knows that she never misses an opportunity to do a kindness, nor does she ever forget one. So again, it should not be a surprise that she asked for the chair to be named in honor of Dr. Thomas Lynch, who recognized her academic potential and who encouraged her to apply for the PhD program. So we're very happy to have Marilyn Simons here today, and I would like to ask you to join us on stage. Marilyn, we would like to present you with this medal in recognition of your extraordinary generosity and splendid support of the excellence in teaching, research, scholarship with the establishment of the Thomas Lynch Endowed Distinguished Chair of Economics. Thank you. Dr. McGarry, Stony Brook University proudly recognizes your outstanding contributions to teaching and research, honors your exemplary service in the field of economics, acknowledges the distinction you bring to the university as the inaugural Thomas Lynch Endowed Distinguished Chair of Economics. Next up, we have Loredana Polezzi from the Department of Languages and Cultural Studies. Loredana, would you please join us on stage?
What does it mean to identify as Italian, or indeed as Italian American, here in the US? But also, what does it mean to be Italian today in a very much changing Italy at the center of the Mediterranean? At the core of what I do, there are questions that in many ways go well beyond Italian studies or Italian American studies. And they're questions such as, how do we create and maintain societies that are both diverse, inclusive in terms of ethnicity, but also gender? So I am trying to enhance our understanding of precisely how we build cohesive societies, of how we live together at the same time appreciating our differences and not building negative images of others, not building walls against each other. So those are the questions that I deal with, and I think they have an impact on the Stony Brook community itself, and they have an impact potentially and hopefully really well beyond Stony Brook too.
Dr. Polezzi, Stony Brook University proudly recognizes your outstanding contributions to teaching and research, honors your exemplary service to the field of Italian studies, and acknowledges the distinction you bring to the university as the Alfonso De Mato Endowed Chair in Italian and Italian American Studies. Congratulations. Next up, we have Leonardo Rastelli from the Young Institute of Theoretical Physics and the Department of Physics and Astronomy.
It's interesting that at some level we still don't quite know what quantum field theory really is at the fundamental level. And each generation seems to bring not only new applications of quantum field theory, but also novel perspectives, how to define it, how to conceptualize it. Quantum field theory is a framework that really is a universal language for theoretical physics, both describing the fundamental laws of nature as well as a host of emergent complex phenomena. What interests me is to find a more fundamental formulation of quantum field theory, and the basic aspiration is to use general consistency principles as well as symmetries to find such a formulation. Stony Brook, I think, is a great place for students. They become my partners, and it's sort of this process of apprenticeship where they learn by doing what I do, and they are my sounding board for my ideas, and so it's very useful for me, and I think it's a great education for them. We are contributed to this beautiful framework of theoretical physics.
Over 50 years ago, Jim Simons and CN, or how he was known here, Frank Young, held a series of conversations which led to their mutual recognition of fundamental overlap of their disciplines, ultimately led to the establishment of the Simons Center for Geometry and Physics and the special interest of the Simons Foundation in our mathematics and physics programs. As a result, the leadership of the Simons Foundation was instrumental in the creation of the Renaissance Chair of Theoretical Physics, and we are delighted to have Yuri Schinkel here today, the Executive Vice President of the Simons Foundation Division of Mathematics and Physical Sciences, here this evening. Dr. Schinkel, would you please join us on stage? Dr. Schinkel, we would like to present you with this medal, recognizing the Simons Foundation's extraordinary generosity and splendid support of the excellence in teaching and research and scholarship with the establishment of the Renaissance Endowed Chair of Theoretical Physics. Congratulations. Dr. Rastelli, Stony Brook University proudly recognizes your outstanding contributions in teaching and research, honors your exemplary service to the field of theoretical physics, and acknowledges the distinction you bring to the university as the inaugural Renaissance Endowed Chair of Theoretical Physics. Okay, our last endowed faculty member from the College of Arts and Sciences is Dr. Sandhya Sundaresan from the Linguistics Department.
me to Stony Brook is that it allows me to do theoretical work on a number of languages and teach it. The other part of my research has to do with work on Tamil, Dravidian language, which I just spoken in parts of southern India, which I speak natively. One of the classes that we teach is an undergraduate class called The Structure of Uncommonly Taught Languages, where you have a language consultant who speaks a language natively, typically another student, and the students will literally do field work, but in class, where they'll say, how do you say this word? How do you say that word? And they learn about the language. It's like being an archaeologist or sociologist, but you're excavating details of this language. And it's one of our most popular classes. This is a university that I think places a lot of weight on developing research in South Asian culture, languages, linguistics, economics. It's a very good opportunity for students to learn about a different culture, different language. There are many ways to develop it in positive ways. One of my primary goals, even before I got the endowment, that I was committed to was making people understand that the living spoken language, even if it's a non-standard dialect, is worthy of serious academic study. And that's important.
As a child in India, Bala Swaminathan developed an early appreciation for the Tamil language and literature, one of the most enduring classical languages still spoken today. Bala and Prabha Swaminathan created the Anandavali, and I have to say this several times, and Dr. G. Swaminathan Endowed Research Professor in Tamil in honor of Bala's mother and father to advance Tamil research across disciplines and ultimately to create better cross-cultural understanding and cooperation. We are happy to have Bala and Prabha here tonight, and I would like them now to join us, please, on stage. Dr. and Mrs. Swaminathan, we like to present you with this medal in recognition of your extraordinary generosity and splendid support of excellence in teaching and research and scholarship with the establishment of the Anandavali and Dr. G. Swaminathan Endowed Research Professor in Tamil. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so now it is my time to turn over the stage and introduce Peter Igrashi, Dean of the Renaissance School of Medicine.
Well, good evening. The first endowed faculty member from the Renaissance School of Medicine tonight is Dr. Olga Aroniadis. Dr. Aroniadis, please join us on stage.
We're really trying to better understand the connections between the gut and the brain and the ways that gut health and our bacteria can influence brain function, and also better understand and dissect the role of the patient-physician relationship. I have a very robust clinical practice, and my clinical practice serves as a canvas for all of the research that we do. The goal of the work really is to help potentially develop novel therapeutic options for patients with GI diseases and concomitant mental health disorders, and training tools to help physicians provide care in an atmosphere that's warm and non-stigmatizing. Stony Brook is a unique place for physicians and for students. It allows for the growth of science and clinical research, and it's a very exciting opportunity to be in that kind of culture and that type of environment. I think the donor of this endowed professorship was really interested in helping to support a physician to do right by patients on a daily basis, to provide that high quality care. And that's where my passion lies. It's in caring for patients and ensuring that we are delivering nothing but high quality care to every single person who walks through the door at Stony Brook.
Dr. Woniadis, Stony Brook University proudly recognizes your outstanding contributions in teaching and research, honors your exemplary service to the field of gastroenterology, and acknowledges the distinction you bring to the university as the Svetlana Koroleva Endowed Professor in Gastroenterology. Congratulations. Our next faculty member is Dr. Thomas Diakovo from the Department of Pediatrics.
What I've been studying for over 25 years now is understanding the molecular mechanisms by how pathological clots form or life-ending clots form in patients, in particular neonates, who have congenital heart disease that have to undergo complex surgeries. I really am very interested in helping these patients, even because my own daughter had to undergo these operations, and for me to be able to say I've now contributed to helping to answer those questions and to bring new therapies, that's incredibly satisfying and personally satisfying as well. In addition to my interest in clinical research and programs that are going on, we also have a basic science role, and this is what this lab is actually for. Stony Brook offers the opportunity to not only do basic science, but actually supports the translation of that basic science into the clinic or the patient. It's the excitement and exploration. I may never get to Mars and do the outer universe, but I can go into the inner universe and really look at molecular mechanisms and understand them and actually utilize that information for the benefit of patients.
Dr. Diakovo, Stony Brook University proudly recognizes your outstanding contributions in teaching and research, honors your exemplary service to the field of pediatrics, and acknowledges the distinction you bring to the university as a NAP chair in pediatrics. Congratulations. It's now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Lilian Mujica Parodi this evening.
The focus of my research has really been looking critically at some fundamental assumptions about what disease means in the context of psychiatry and other sorts of brain-based disorders. How can we measure that kind of dysregulation? How can we describe it in a more precise and quantitative way? How does that then lead to the types of signs and symptoms that are associated with each type of disorder? We needed a way to be able to do computational modeling that's amenable to that kind of analysis. And that wasn't something that really existed. And so one of the advantages of neuroblocks as an infrastructure is it allows us to integrate information. It allows colleagues to join forces in collaborating and providing data that can be integrated and is more than just the sum of its parts. It allows for crowdsourcing of information in science in a way that really hasn't been made possible, particularly in clinical neuroscience.
Best-selling author Jan Bazuki and her husband, Roblox founder David Bazuki, are dedicated to supporting ambitious research to better understand and treat diseases and disorders of the brain, including bipolar disorder. The Buzuki Family Foundation established the Buzuki Endowed Chair in Metabolic Neuroscience to support an outstanding Stony Brook faculty member with research focused on metabolic neuroscience, including the role of metabolism in brain-based disorders. Ms. Buzuki and Dr. Muhika Parodi, Ms. Buzuki, please join me on the stage. Ms. Buzuki, we'd like to present you with this medal in recognition of your extraordinary generosity and splendid support of excellence in teaching, research, and scholarship with the establishment of the Buzuki Endowed Chair in Metabolic Neuroscience. Dr. Muhika Parodi, Stony Brook University proudly recognizes your outstanding contributions in teaching and research, honors your exemplary service to the field of neuroscience, and acknowledges the distinction you bring to the university as the inaugural Buzuki Endowed Chair in Metabolic Neuroscience. Congratulations. Next up this evening, we have Dr. Stella Circa from the Department of Pharmacological Sciences.
The focus of the work in our lab is on the interactions, the communication between the nervous system and the immune system. And we're looking at that in different models of disease, neurological and psychiatric disease. The brain is a big place, and we don't understand a lot of the interactions that are happening. With the progression of science, the different technologies that have been developed have brought forward a much bigger understanding of the role of the immune system in the brain. We're looking for treatments and drugs that could be used to add to the panoply of drugs that we use for these specific diseases, depression and glioblastoma. The endowment has supported the training and the education of my students. We're interested in blending together preclinical basic research, which is what my lab does, with bringing it to what happens in the hospital, what happens in human patients.
Dr. Circa, Stony Brook University proudly recognizes your outstanding contributions in teaching and research, honors your absolutely exemplary service to the Renaissance School of Medicine, and acknowledges the distinction you bring to the university as a Miriam and David Donahoe Distinguished Professor. Congratulations. Our next faculty member is Dr. James Voswinkle from the Department of Surgery.
We are so fortunate here. Stony Brook is not about one individual. It's about the team we have. It's about the commitment they make. It's about the integration. It's about the comprehensive services we can provide. When someone is in crisis, everybody comes. There's not a question, there is not a hesitation, everybody comes. We've been using this endowment in various ways. First way, obviously, to impact the horrible effects that trauma has on individuals is for prevention. When you go into the elderly communities and you work with them, whether it's Tai Chi so they learn balance, whether it's about how they can make their house safer, there's a tremendous degree of gratitude. From a treatment perspective, we truly are focusing on our first responders, our EMS agencies. You teach them the 16-hour course called Pre-Hospital Trauma Life Support. You give them a test, you give them practicals, you show things, and I believe each truly makes a difference. Lastly, we are using some of the gift for some research endeavors. Just like any illness, any disease, if we can do research, we can improve our treatments, we can improve our options, we can improve outcomes.
Following a serious 2016 car accident, Lillian Schneider was airlifted from Montauk, New York to Stony Brook University Hospital and treated for extensive traumatic injury. Undergoing emergency surgery in the Stony Brook Trauma Center, Lillian credits the expertise of Dr. James Voswinkel and the care team in the Stony Brook Trauma Center for saving her life. To express her gratitude and advance the trauma team's efforts, especially those ensuring that first responders in the community have the training and skills needed to provide others with life-saving care, Lillian has established the Lillian and Leonard Schneider Endowed Chair in Trauma Surgery. Here with us tonight is Lillian's son, Scott. Mr. Schneider, please join us on the stage. Mr. Schneider would like to present you with this medal in recognition of your family's extraordinary generosity and splendid support of excellence in teaching, research, and scholarship with the establishment of the Lillian and Leonard Schneider Endowed Chair in Trauma Surgery. Dr. Voswinkel, Stony Brook University proudly recognizes your outstanding contributions in teaching and research, honors your exemplary service to the field of trauma surgery, and acknowledges the distinction you bring to the university as the Lillian and Leonard Schneider Endowed Chair in Trauma Surgery. Congratulations. Last but not least, for the Renaissance School of Medicine, we have Dr. William Wertheim.
My work really is in trying to make the residents' educational experience as good as it can possibly be. If we think about what physicians are going to be doing over the next 20, 30, 40 years, they need a very different set of tools than I was given when I was in training. Training was really very experiential. We would work 24 hours a day, and we would ask each other or look things up to see what the right thing to do was. And the assumption was that after you've done that for a certain period of time, you've seen enough and you'll be fine in your specialty. And over time, we have changed that dramatically. We make sure that students get the knowledge base that they need to have to go out into practice. There's an energy here that I've always found it tremendously appealing. It's always been a very much a can-do, why don't we look at things differently and do things differently? My end goal is to produce the best possible caregivers for the patients that need help. So the kind of experience that they have when they're at Stony Brook will find its effects all over the country.
Dr. Wertheim, Stony Brook University proudly recognizes your outstanding contributions in teaching and research, honors your exemplary service to the field of education, and acknowledges the distinction you bring to the university as the inaugural Endowed Chair in Graduate Medical Education. Congratulations. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Paul Shepson, Dean of the School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences.
I am pleased to introduce Dr. Ellen Pickich this evening.
My North Star has always been to do science that has an impact on real-world problems. The endowment has really allowed me to do things that I would not have been able to do otherwise. We embarked on the Shinnecock Bay Restoration Program. The successes not only included cleaning up the bay and not having any more brown tides, but also it restored the clam fishery. Just recently, Shinnecock Bay was named a Global Hope Spot. It is the first Hope Spot in the state of New York, and it really has put Shinnecock Bay on the map and Stony Brook. I'm very excited about eDNA, and we really pioneered this method by taking a water sample, bringing it into the laboratory, filtering the water, and extracting the DNA. We can tell every species that is there. Over time, we can get a picture of whether a species is increasing in abundance or decreasing in abundance, if it's moving from one area to the other. So there's a ton of information that you can get with this.
When as a Stony Brook Foundation trustee, Roz Walrath learned about Ellen Pickett's work, she was inspired to get involved. As a member of the School of Marine and Atmospheric Science Dean's Advisory Council and the Ocean Sanctuary Alliance, and former board member of the New York League of Conservation Voters, Roz's commitment to ocean conservation runs deep, as marine scientists like to say. And Roz's commitment, when coupled with that of Mark Newhouse, president of the Ocean Sanctuary Alliance and Palau's deputy ambassador for oceans and seas, has brought about real change. Together, your work has brought international and national attention to the UN's Sustainable Development Goal to create ocean sanctuaries. Roz and Mark, we are so grateful for your help in creating the Endowed Professor of Ocean Conservation Science. Mr. Newhouse, Ms. Walrath, and Dr. Pickett, please join me on stage. You're already here. Mr. Newhouse, Ms. Walrath, we'd like to present you with these medals in recognition of your extraordinary generosity and splendid support of excellence in teaching, research, and scholarship with the establishment of the Endowed Professorship of Ocean Conservation Science. Dr. Pickett, Stony Brook University proudly recognizes your outstanding contributions in teaching and research, honors your exemplary service to the field of ocean conservation, and acknowledges the distinction you bring to the university as the inaugural Endowed Professor of Ocean Conservation Science.
Okay, so let's do one last round of applause for all of our honored faculty. Thank you all for joining us this evening, and thanks to all of you who've organized this event. I mean, this event was really classy, right? I mean, I would want to give everyone a round of applause who put so much time into it. So this concludes our program for tonight. I now invite all of you in the audience to join us for a reception in the lobby. Thank you.